Dawn broke pale and uncertain over RAF Manston. Dew glistened along the wings of our strange-looking fighters, the Boulton Paul Defiants, sleek yet archaic, their single turret crouched like a watchful eye. I was Sergeant Alan Myers, rear gunner, 21 years old and already too familiar with loss. From the turret, I watched mechanics tighten bolts and check ammunition drums. The hush before takeoff always felt sacred, a quiet litany before the storm. "We'll give them hell today, Al," Pilot Officer Peter Hammonds shouted from below, his grin full of false bravado. He was my pilot, my lifeline. The Defiant's design had no forward guns. Our entire fate hinged on my turret. As the engines roared alive, our formation rose into a sky bright with promise. Far to the south, the channel shimmered, a gateway and a grave. We did not know it yet, but the Defiant's time in the sun would be short, as fleeting as the morning light glinting off her polished fuselage.
By mid-June 1940, our unit had begun escort duties over the Channel. Defiants were new, an oddity among the sleek Spitfires and Hurricanes. The Luftwaffe had not yet learnt our weakness. From the turret, I could see Dornier bombers like silverfish scuttling below, Messerschmitts glinty above. Hammond's voice cracked through the intercom. "Bandits, 11 o'clock high!" I swung my turret hard. The twin Brownings spat lead and fire. A BF-109 burst into black smoke, spiraling toward the waves. The rush of victory filled me, yet beneath it thrummed unease. The Defiant's secret advantage was fading. Soon the Germans would discover we had no front guns. As we returned, the Channel sky was scarred with vapor trails, the smell of oil and cordite clinging to our flight suits. On the tarmac, Hammond removed his helmet, eyes full of something unspoken. We were hunters today, but tomorrow no one could say.
Late May had dragged us into a fury of blue and fire over Dunkirk. The beaches below were crowded like an anthill struck by a God's hill, soldiers waiting, praying, dying. Defiant circled above to protect the retreat. I remember pivoting the turret to rake incoming Messerschmitts. The guns overheated, my vision blurred through the plexiglass dome. "They're behind us," Hammond shouted. The aircraft shuddered as shells tore through the fuselage. I felt heat, then coldness creeping down my arm. Somehow, we made it back across the Channel, coughing smoke. That night, the mess hall was silent. Empty chairs outnumbered the living. Between sips of lukewarm tea, Hammond muttered, "They're learning. We won't be lucky again." I watched the smoke rise from my cup and thought of the men still burning on the French sand, wishing I could pour the memory out as easily.
By August, the Battle of Britain was raging. The air smelled of fuel and fear. Defiants of 264 Squadron were ordered to patrol above Kent. From the moment we lifted off, radar stations crackled with warnings. "Raid approaching Dover, altitude 15,000. We met them inland, a swarm of Heinkels escorted by 109s. Hammond's hands gripped the stick. The Defiant climbed steady into chaos. I hosed fire into the nearest Messerschmitt, its tail shearing off. Then came the counterattack. Our formation shattered. Defiants fell like black comets. 1, 2, 3 of our boys gone in the first minute. "Break! Break!" Hammond's shout barely reached me before rounds punctured our tail. With luck or mercy, we escaped back to base, canopy riddled with holes. Night fell smoking over Kent, fields still burning where wrecks lay smoldering. The Luftwaffe had learned the truth. The Defiant was no longer feared, only hunted.
The next morning, silence fell heavy over Manston. Mechanics rolled broken aircraft to one side, while the surviving crews waited for orders that no longer made sense. Hammond stared at our Defiant's bullet-torn fuselage as if it were a coffin. "All that faith," he murmured, "and for what?" I climbed into my turret just to feel useful, running my hand along the cold steel. The scent of oil, burnt rubber, and loss filled the hangar. Squadron leader Gardiner gathered us. His voice trembled. "Commander's rotating you to night duties. The Defiant will hunt in darkness now." A mixed sigh, part relief, part humiliation. The sky we once owned had turned against us. Yet I remember a mechanic humming quietly as he patched holes with aluminum sheeting. He said, "At least the moon won't shoot back." Somehow that tiny shard of humor kept me standing among ghosts.
Equals under blackened skies, our fortunes changed. Equipped with radar operators and new tactics, Defiants were reborn as night fighters. The first sortie from Wittering felt eerie. Invisible prey, invisible predators. I peered through the turret, eyes straining for faint silhouettes. "Contact, 9 o'clock," the radar voice guided. A faint glow ahead revealed a Heinkel bomber crossing the moon. We closed in. My guns erupted, silver tracers carving the dark. The bomber's engines burst into flame, falling silently into the void below. Hammond laughed, a wild sound edged with awe. For the first time in months, we had struck without being slaughtered. The Defiant had found a new purpose, a brief redemption. Yet even as we landed, dawn painted the eastern horizon, and I knew daylight would always remain our enemy, waiting to reclaim us.
Equals. When flying paused, the nights were long. I began writing letters, one for each friend who hadn't returned. I hid them in my flight jacket, unsent, unread. The airfield stood quiet under the weight of absence, bunks stripped, mugs still resting where they left them. Hammond caught me once, pen in hand. "You think they need words where they are?" he asked softly. I didn't answer. Instead, I looked to the north, where stars hung cold over England's battered heart. Every flare in the distance felt like a memory trying to burn. The war had made us ghosts before our time, men measuring life in sorties. Still, when the signal lamp blinked, we would go, back into that dark, unending sky, chasing phantoms in machines built almost as fragile as ourselves.
Equals August 28th, 1944. We called it Black Thursday. 264 Squadron was ordered to intercept a German raid near Thanet. The reports were wrong. Instead of bombers, we met a vanguard of Messerschmitts. Sky and sea fused in a storm of steel. "Hang on, Al," Hammond shouted as bullets tore through our wing. I spun the turret, returning fire until the barrels glowed red. One enemy flamed, then another. But it was hopeless. Defiants dropping one after another, black crosses sweeping from the sun. A shell burst near our plane. The world turned sideways. I woke amid waves and twisted aluminum, clinging to a floating wing. Hammond was gone. Rescue boats found me hours later, dazed and burned by salt and sun. I never again took to the sky. The Defiant had done its duty, but the cost would haunt me forever.
Equals. In the months after, I remained grounded at Wittering, watching new squadrons take shape. The air hummed with Spitfires now, sleek, confident, victorious. The Defiant was quietly withdrawn, whispered about like a failed experiment. Yet I couldn't abandon her in memory. She had carried us through fire, our confidence, our fear, our last goodbyes carved into her hull. I often walked the airfield's edge at dusk, imagining Hammond beside me, his laughter rising with the wind. Some machines do not survive history, but their echoes live in the men who dared believe in them. The Defiant had defied, if only for a moment, the impossible weight of war.
Equals. Years later, I returned to Manston as an old man. The runways were cracked, the control tower silent save for the wind. I traced my hand along a preserved Defiant in a museum hangar, the same shape, the same cold steel. Children wandered past, pointing in curiosity. Few would know that tiny turret once decided a man's life in seconds. Standing there, I heard again Hammond's laugh, the rattle of guns, the heartbeat of engines. The ghosts had not left. They simply moved higher, into the memory of the sky itself. I looked upward, eyes filmed with age and tears, and whispered, "We were brave once." For a moment, I thought I saw a black shape against the sun, a Defiant, eternally climbing into the light.